Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 49. Be with me, we're in the book of Genesis, and today we're going to look at how to build an ark. So, we're going to look at how to build one, who's going to build the ark, when should you build an ark, and why build an ark. Listen with me, open your Bibles. It's in Genesis chapter 6. It's all about Noah and the building of the ark. Genesis 6:11. Now the earth was corrupt in the Lord's sight, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And then here it is. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark. Cover it inside and outside with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits, its breadth, 50 cubits, its height, 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. So let's talk about the ark and the construction of it. First of all, it's 450 feet long. So that's longer than a football field, 50% longer than a football field, longer than a professional soccer field, 75 feet wide, and it's 45 feet tall. Now, these are pretty tall stories. He says there's three stories. We'd consider that about as tall as a four-story building today. It adds up to 1.4 million cubic feet, so extremely large. It has a deck area of 100,000 square feet. So it is magnificently large. And we know how big, how wide, why did that be so big? Well, there's a lot of people, a lot of animals, not many people, but a lot of animals. And it has to be sufficient for the protection and suited for the purpose, which is to save everybody through this flood. Save people, save the breath of life, save creatures. Now, of interest is even as magnificent as this thing was, it's sort of the Eiffel Tower of its age. It was disposable. It's a one-shot deal. It's a purpose-driven craft, and once they were done with it, they were done with it. Cool thing was it's designed by God, directed by God, but built by man. So you have this little bit of cooperation. All right, so who's going to build the ark? Well, it's built by Noah. Now, this isn't Noah's first day with God. This was not poof, build an ark. This was Noah, a righteous man, walking with God, blameless in his generation. He's a guy who's going to demonstrate the most critical element of Christianity, which is faith, way back when. And that's the trust in the reality of the promises of God before you see them with your eyes. And so Noah's saying, I have faith that a flood is coming. Why? Because I believe in the God that told me that it's coming. I have faith that this ark is going to work. And I have faith to get to a covenant, which is the kind of the truly important thing. Now, Noah walked with God in a way that he was obedient to the things that God had given. Four times it describes Noah as saying, Noah did all that the Lord had commanded him. So he dotted the I's and crossed the T's of all the things that the Lord had given him. All right, let's talk about when to build an ark. We have very specific time dates of when the flood came, which was in 600, when he was 600 years old. And the time date that we have before that was when he sired Ham and Seth and Japheth. And so that was a 100-year window. So it's going to take a long while for them to build for him to build an ark. And my question would be like, all right, let's say it took him every bit of that 100 years. Would you build an ark if you could save your family? If you could save mankind following that? What if you had little help? What if you even had no help? What worthwhile thing have you preserved, persevered with? It took a while. Maybe it was child rearing over 20 years, or graduating from high school, 12 years, or going through graduate school, or maybe it's training for a long race, a marathon, or something like that, or any long obedience in a single direction, which describes Christianity, or maybe persistent through the difficulties of loving the people of God over a time. So, when is the time to start doing something right before God? Is it on the big day, or is it today? Today's the day, and then tomorrow, and then the next day. All right. So, what's the purpose of an ark? Obviously, it's to get through a flood. You got to get into this ark. You got to get through the flood and the rain. But the real purpose is to eventually get to the covenant that God is promising. So God had up to this point didn't owe Noah anything. It's we who owe God. It's we who owe him our attention, our appreciation, and our worship. Everything he gives us is grace. But God is going to codify his covenant, codify his grace in a covenant that's going to come after they get through the flood. The covenants are kind of a description of his character and his promise that's specific. So in chapter 8, verse 1, it's going to say God remembers Noah. And that's where God takes action for Noah's benefit. All this kind of leads up to that moment. So what's the purpose of the ark? The purpose of an ark is to keep them alive on the face of the earth, preserving the breath of life, and live long enough to get to that covenant, We have a covenant keeper God, and let's get to that covenant. Abraham's eventually going to get one. You're going to need an ark to preserve life to get to something that's bigger, which is the covenant. All right, let's draw some conclusions. Number one, do all that the Lord commands, just like Noah did. Live like you're under a covenant, because we have the benefit, a promise, a favor, a benefit. And why? Because we are under that covenant. And let's appreciate this ark. The designer, builder, built with purpose, Noah building it and God designing it. And let's think about perseverance of building great things one hammer stroke at a time, just like Noah did. Maybe it's being obedient and being obedient to conviction and to be faithful. When are we supposed to be faithful? The answer is today, just like Noah. And obey what? Well, whatever the Lord puts in front of us. Maybe it's an act of integrity or purity or service or relational courage. Let's persevere and build whatever the Lord has for us. Maybe it'll be an ark. Thanks for listening.